Thanks for joining us for Turn the Page with Paige, brought to you by the Goddard School. I'm your host, Paige Holsey. When I was growing up, my dad would joke that he and my mom could not agree on a baby girl name, so he opened a book of baby names and it said Paige 1. So they named me Paige. I always enjoy hearing unique stories behind a name, and a new children's book has exactly that. Hello, my name is Louisiana Purchase O'Leary. It was written by St. Louis's Jonathan Hickman, and it is based on a true story of a baby girl born right here in St. Louis named Louisiana Purchase O'Leary. Author Jonathan Hickman joins us now in studio. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This blew my mind the first time I heard of your book and the story behind it. So just to be clear, there really was a baby girl named here in St. Louis, not Louisiana or Louisiana Purchase, but Louisiana Purchase O'Leary?
There is indeed. She was born in 1902.
Why did her parents name her that?
Well, as a matter of fact, her father and her mother lived in a tent village in Forest Park, and he was part of a crew of people building the 1904 World's Fair.
So she's really part of St. Louis history then?
She really is.
And what was it about the Louisiana Purchase that attracted her parents? Why were they connected to that?
Well, we in St. Louis tend to think of our World's Fair as the 1904 World's Fair, but at the time, it was known as the Louisiana Purchase Exposition.
I did not know that. Okay, so it was very closely linked to the work that they were doing and literally where they were living.
Yes.
Okay. How did you uncover this?
Well, as a matter of fact, I work at the Missouri History Museum, and we always have an exhibit on the World's Fair, and the previous exhibit of the World's Fair had a photograph of these two parents and a little baby, and the little sign next to it said, "This is Louisiana Purchase O'Leary and her parents," and she was born in Forest Park, and she later on is known as the World's Fair Baby.
The World's Fair Baby. And that's this photo that we have here, right?
Yes, it is.
It's a beautiful photo. It's very classic of that era. Very serious, somber faces of the hardworking people and their baby girl.
That's right.
So what made you think, okay, this needs to be a children's book?
Well, as I read the brief write-up about the family and their daughter and the unusual name, I thought, this is the perfect approach to a children's book. It's a story about a girl with a most unusual name and the fact that she keeps this name. She never goes by any nicknames, and I've never known a children's book to be just about how you got your name.
I love that idea. This is really a conversation starter, and that conversation can go so many ways about how she got her name, how the child reading it got their name, or how grandma got her name, and so on. And then you're learning about history in the meantime. And that's really special, that it seems like Louisiana Purchase O'Leary took ownership of her name, and she felt pride in that name. She didn't want to be called Louie or some other nickname. She wanted to be Louisiana Purchase O'Leary.
That is right.
Tell me more about what happens inside your story, the pages of the book that you created.
Well, the beginning of the book asks the question, do you know where you got your name from? And then it goes and gives a little bit of information about Thomas Jefferson making the Louisiana Purchase and the events leading up to the World's Fair. And then it's Louisiana Purchase's story. And as you just said, she's in class one day, and her teacher and her classmates would try to nickname her Lou or Louise or Louisa, and she would correct them and say, no, 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 my name is Louisiana Purchase O'Leary. Please call me by my name.
That's a long name to learn how to write.
Yeah, it is.
Girl. Okay, don't spoil the ending, but I'm curious, where did Louisiana Purchase O'Leary end up in life? What's the rest of her story outside of the book?
She is a lifelong St. Louisan. She drops out of school at about the age of 12. She finds a job, and she works various jobs around St. Louis, but whenever there were anniversaries pertaining to the World's Fair, she is part of the anniversaries. She would go, she would talk, she'd sign autographs, and she always is very proud of her association with the World's Fair, and even being known for the rest of her life as the World's Fair Baby.
That's crazy. I love the story so much. I'm intrigued by it. Have you heard from any of her descendants? Because you said she lived her life here in St. Louis.
I have. I've gotten an email that was relayed to me from my publisher from a grandson of Louisiana Purchase O'Leary asking, who am I? How do I know all this? And, I responded how I learned the information. But she was well loved in her family.
I understand that you've made some school visits and shared the story with teachers. What has the reaction been to the book from either teachers, historians, or especially the kids learning about names?
Well, it's funny you ask that because a lot of people think it's a fiction story. It looks fiction. It sounds fiction, and the illustrations are cartoons, but that's why I have the photographs to prove that, this is a real person, and this really is her story. And at the end of my book, I have questions for teachers. And the questions are, basically, what's the story of your name? And if someone were to have a baby now, what's an event or historical event that parents might name a child after?
Oh yeah, now my mind is racing. What do we have coming up this summer in St. Louis to name a child after? So we showed the photo of her as a newborn with her parents, and then this is also a photo of her as well, right? It's in color, and what is that one?
That is her at another World's Fair reunion many, many, many years later. She's an older woman there. By the way, Louisiana Purchase does live to be 100 years old. So she's born in 1902 and she dies in the year 2003, 2 months shy of her 101st birthday.
That is incredible. Talk about a life story, one that you couldn't make up. You couldn't dream this up. Where can viewers buy this book?
I'm glad you asked. It's available online. It's available at Amazon.com, Walmart.com, and BarnesandNoble.com. But you can also get this book at Sold on St. Louis, which is the Missouri History Museum shop. You may get it at Main Street Books in St. Charles. You can get it at an independent bookstore in the city named Spines. You can get it at Betty's Books, which is in Webster Groves. And finally, you can get it at Subterranean Books, which is in University City.
Okay, very widely available, but I love that you can also come learn more about the World Fair at the History Museum while you pick up a copy.
Yes.
Before we let you go, please give us your recommendation for another children's book from another author.
There is an author/illustrator I really like. Her books can be funny, but they can also be heart-wrenching. The author I'm speaking of is Patricia Polacco. She illustrates her own books. And the two books that I would recommend are Pink and Say, which is a Civil War story about two people by the name of Pink and Say. They fight on the side of the Union. And the other book is Thank You, Mr. Falker. It is Patricia's 6th grade teacher, and he recognizes that Patricia cannot read. And he takes a different approach, and he succeeds at teaching her how to read.
Great lessons within those books, and a great story in your book. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing the story of Louisiana Purchase O'Leary.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us as well. We hope that you'll come back soon for another episode of Turn the Page with Paige.